From having your bones crushed by a dinosaur to watching a priest wear your skin like a costume, here's what it's like to die in every single time period. Now, before I start, I want to just say for my nerds watching this video, dinosaurs and humans did not live during the same time. And well, I know that. Okay, now pretend you are on the massive and only continent of Pangaea during the Mesozoic era, which for my slower little box heads watching this video was 66 million years ago. Thud. You feel a distant footstep and then another. Crack. Branches snap like bones, then you see it, the subscribe button. Wait, not that. It's a T-Rex! 20 feet tall, 40 feet long, and it's staring right at your funky ass. You freeze because what the hell? But you're too late because it's already charging straight at you. Boom! The impact of its footsteps shake the ground underneath you. At this point, you've probably already pissed your pants. You turn around and start running for dear life. But you're nothing, just a snack in motion. Snap! Its jaws close around your lower half with bone-crushing force. You're lifted into the air, screaming for Boxhead to save you, as blood spews out of your body rapidly. Crunch! Your spine breaks. You're still alive when the teeth come down again, but this time through your chest. And then, darkness. Now let's imagine you're a loyal servant in Pharaoh Khufu's household during the very iconic ancient Egypt times, which was 2500 BCE. For years, you've lived in relative luxury, attending to his every need. Now, he's dead. That must mean it's your time to be rich. Well, ladies and box heads, you're dead wrong. According to ancient tradition, the pharaoh's most devout servants must accompany him to the afterlife. Yup. So your ass is dragged to the tombs as well. The massive entrance slab seals behind you. You're not alone in this tomb. Dozens of other servants stand in absolute darkness. The priests have left, the workers have sealed every entrance. You are now entombed with your pharaoh forever. Even if you're still alive. Drip, drip, drip. Water echoes somewhere in the blackness. But it might as well be on another planet. The air grows thick and stale. With so many people breathing in such a confined space, the oxygen depletes fast and well, it starts to get hot. Some servants will start to cry, others pray desperately to the gods. A few pound uselessly against the walls to try and escape. But these walls are 3 feet thick. I mean, no one is coming. Hour by hour, the air becomes poisonous. Your head pounds, your vision blurs even in total darkness. The weaker servants collapse first, hitting the floor as they suffocate. Their bodies twitch and seize. Now, it's your turn, buddy. You're dying now, you can feel it. In some useless attempt to live, you claw at the walls until your fingernails break and bleed. The chamber fills with the stench of death and human waste as people lose control. Your lungs burn like fire, your heart beats desperately against your ribs. But there's no oxygen left. You sink to your knees, then collapse entirely. Dead, just like the funky-ass pharaoh next to you. Now let's travel to 1000 BCE, deep into ancient China. You are accused of treason against the emperor. The evidence is almost non-existent, but in ancient China, suspicion equals, well, guilt. The sentence is lingqi, which means death by 1,000 cuts. So they drag you to the execution platform in the city center. Hundreds of people gather to witness imperial justice. The executioner is a master craftsman. He's performed this ritual dozens of times and knows exactly how to keep you alive for maximum suffering. He sharpens his knife. You're tied to a wooden post, arms and legs spread wide. Now the executioner begins his work. The first cut is shallow, just a strip of skin from your chest. Blood wells up, but it's nothing fatal. That's the entire point. Slowly, little ribbons of your flesh are peeled away from your body like apple skin. The crowd counts each cut out loud. 15, 16, 17. No one shows mercy. A piece of your ear falls to the platform. Skin from your thigh curls away like a wood shaving. The executioner works away. Blood loss makes you dizzy, but they keep you smelling salts. They won't let you escape into the darkness that easily. 200! 201! Now your body looks like raw meat. Blood pools at the platform's base, attracting flies. The crowd slowly grows quiet as you start to look unrecognizable. By cut 700, there's barely anything left that resembles human. It is said that this is one of the most painful ways to die and that you don't last more than 4 to 5 minutes with this torture method. Want to know something even more disgusting? The flesh of the victims may also have been sold as medicine during this time. By the way, this torture method was only banned in 1905. That was honestly not too long ago. But wait, maybe your crime was different. Maybe it wasn't treason. Maybe your crime demands being cooked alive. What happens then? Well, I'll paint you a picture. There's a bronze cauldron large enough to hold a grown person. That person is going to be, well, you. Servants pile wood underneath while water fills the vessel. Steam begins rising from the surface. Your hands are tied. Guards hold you down as the temperature climbs toward boiling. The water reaches a violent boil. They lift you by your arms and legs. You struggle frantically, but it's useless. They drop you into the cauldron. The pain is instant. Every nerve in your body screams all at once. Your flesh cooks immediately. The outer layer turns red, then white, then starts peeling away in sheets just like paint. You try to climb out, but the metal walls are too high and you're slippery with your own cooking flesh. Your muscles cook and contract. Next, your hair burns away completely. You scream until your throat is raw, but the sound disappears in bubbling water. Your body is literally being cooked alive. Eventually, mercifully, your heart stops beating. They fish out what remains with long poles. Now let's time travel to 399 BCE in ancient Greece. You are a philosopher in Athens. Your fresh ideas threaten the order. You corrupt the youth with dangerous questions, they say. The jury of 500 citizens has spoken. Death by hemlock. The executioner brings a simple clay vessel filled with dark liquid. Hemlock plant extract mixed with water. It smells bitter like crushed poisonous herbs. Your students and friends gather in the prison cell. They cry openly. You lift the hemlock to your lips. Farewell, my friends, you tell your companions. You drain the cup in one long swallow. The taste is horrible, bitter, and earthy like chewing dirty roots. But you keep it down. For several minutes, nothing happens. You continue discussing philosophy as if nothing has changed. Then you feel it beginning. It starts in your feet, a strange numbness like they've fallen completely asleep. Hemlock attacks the nervous system slowly, shutting down your body from the limbs inward. But unlike other poisons, it leaves your mind completely clear. You'll be alert for the entire process. The paralysis moves up your legs. You try wiggling your toes, but they don't respond to your commands. Your waist goes numb, then your chest. Your lungs start failing. Each breath requires more conscious effort, but your mind remains razor sharp. The poison is reaching my heart now, you note, as if you were conducting an experiment on yourself. Then the final stage begins. Your heart muscle, paralyzed like everything else, starts to fail. You close your eyes, you say your last words, your heart stops, your lungs stop moving. But let's say the mob decides your fate instead. How would that go? You'd be standing in the center of a crowd surrounded by hundreds of angry faces. The charges don't matter now: adultery, blasphemy, treason. The crowd wants blood. People bend down, selecting rocks. Some are small pebbles. Others are the size of a man's fist, jagged and sharp. There's no escape from them. Guards block every exit. The circle closes around you like a noose. A rock hits your shoulder. It stings but doesn't do serious damage. Then another and another. A sharp stone catches you above the left eye. Blood streams down your face, blurring your vision. The crowd roars in approval like animals. More stones rain down. They hit your arms, chest, and legs. Each impact sends jolts of agony through your body. A large rock hits your ribs. You hear them snap like dry branches. Breathing becomes torture. You fall to your knees, desperately trying to protect your head with bloodied hands. But the stones keep coming relentlessly. A rock the size of bread strikes the back of your head. Your skull cracks. The world spins. You taste the blood flooding your mouth. Another stone hits your temple. Then another strikes your face. The last thing you see is jagged granite flying towards your eyes. It strikes you between them with crushing force. Everything goes black forever. The crowd continues throwing stones long after you've stopped moving. You wake up and it's 80 CE during the Roman Empire. You are a criminal sentenced to punishment in the arena. You're about to become entertainment for 80,000 screaming Romans. The gate rises. It's go time. blinding sunlight floods the dark tunnel you've been kept in as you're pushed into the Colosseum's sand-covered floor. The noise hits you like a physical push. That's 80,000 voices screaming for blood. And I'm talking about your blood. Across the arena, another gate opens. A massive lion emerges. It's been starved for days to make it more aggressive. The beast sees you immediately, its yellow eyes lock onto yours. You have no weapons, no armor, not a chance of survival. The lion charges at you immediately. You try to run, but there's nowhere to go. The arena walls are 15 feet high, smooth and unclimbable. The lion catches you from behind. Its claws tear through your back, opening gashes that expose white ribs beneath. You scream and fall face first into the sand. Blood soaks into the ground beneath you. The crowd loves it. Then the lion's massive head dips down, its jaws clamp around your skull, and you feel your bones begin to crack under the pressure. But it doesn't kill you quickly. It plays with you first, like a cat with a mouse. The lion releases your head and bats at you with its paws. Each swipe sends you rolling across the sand, leaving trails of blood. You try to crawl away, but the beast follows, toying with its food. Finally, it gets bored. Its massive teeth bite you in the neck. Your jugular vein ruptures, spraying blood everywhere. The crowd rises to its feet now. You die staring up at 80,000 Romans applauding your pain. Or perhaps your death comes differently. Suppose you're a political enemy of the state. The sentence is crucifixion, death by slow torture on the cross. They drive the first spike through your right wrist. The iron tears right through your tendons and bone. The second nail goes through your left wrist. Blood streams down your arms. Then they set the cross upright. Your full body weight now hangs from 2 iron spikes. With your arms stretched wide, your chest cavity can't expand properly. To breathe, you must push up with your legs. But then they nail your feet to the cross too. To inhale, you must push up on the nail through your feet. And ladies and box heads, hours passed just like this. Your muscles cramp from the unnatural position. Dehydration sets in. Your tongue swells with thirst. Flies buzz around your wounds, laying eggs in the open flesh. You hang there for hours, sometimes a day or more. Eventually, the exhaustion wins. You can no longer push up for breath. It hurts, and it's too much work. Your chest muscles give up, so you suffocate, slowly whilst hanging from iron nails. And by day 2, you've passed away. Now let's talk about how you would die during the Viking Age in 900 CE. You are a captured enemy king. In Viking culture, your death must match your status. It has to be elaborate, ritualistic, and supremely painful. They've chosen the blood eagle. The ritual begins with you face down on a wooden altar. A sharp seax knife cuts along both sides of your spine, slicing through muscle. You scream, but the Vikings ignore you. This is sacred work. Using axes and hammers, they break your ribs away from your spine. Each crack sounds like breaking wood. The pain is beyond description. You can feel them working inside your body, but you're still alive. They pull your broken ribs outward, spreading them wide like the wings of an eagle. Your back opens like a disgusting bloody flower. Then comes the absolute worst part. They reach into your chest and grab your lungs. You feel their hands inside you, gripping the organs that keep you alive. They pull your lungs out through your back and drape them over your spread ribs. The organs flutter in the air like bloody wings. Somehow, impossibly, you're still breathing. The blood eagle is designed to keep you conscious for as long as possible while your lungs hang outside your body. It takes hours before you finally die. Or maybe your death comes from the sea that claimed so many Vikings. But this isn't death by drowning in battle. This is execution. Heavy iron shackles lock around your legs. Each chain weighs 50 pounds and connects to large stones. They row you out to the deepest part of the fjord where the water is black and freezing. They throw you overboard without a word. The chains drag you down immediately. You fight to swim up, but the weight is too much. Cold seawater floods your mouth and nose. You splash around desperately, but the stones pull you deeper into the blackness. Your lungs burn as they fill with water. Your vision dims as oxygen leaves your brain. The water pressure increases as you sink deeper. Your chest feels like it's being crushed in a giant's fist. just like the Titan submersible. Fish scatter as your body speeds toward the bottom. You die in the cold, dark depths from drowning, and your body is never to be found. Now let's talk about how you would die in the Aztec Empire around 1450 CE. You are a captured warrior from an enemy tribe. The Aztec priests have chosen you for the ultimate honor, sacrifice to Huitzilopochtli, the god of war. 10,000 Aztecs gather at the base of the Great Temple. 4 priests drag you up the steep stairs to the altar at the top. The high priest waits at the top holding a knife made from volcanic glass. The edge is sharper than any metal blade. They force you down onto the sacrificial altar, a stone carved in the shape of Tlal-Tecutli, the earth monster. 4 priests hold your arms and legs. You can't move. The high priest raises the knife and plunges it into your chest, just below the ribs. The pain is overwhelming. You scream, but there's a crowd watching and it's louder than you alone could ever be. The priest reaches through the cut skillfully. His fingers find your still beating heart. With one violent motion, he tears your heart from your chest. You're still alive for a few more seconds, watching in horror as he holds your beating heart above his head. The crowd goes wild. Your heart continues beating in his hands for several seconds. Your body goes into shock. The priest offers your heart to the sun god. Meanwhile, your now dead body rolls down the pyramid steps. In Aztec religion, this is somehow the greatest honor you could achieve. Your death feeds the gods and keeps the universe running, or perhaps let's imagine the priests choose a different ritual. Perhaps they need your skin for Zyptotec. 20 priests surround you with sharp blades. They begin cutting your skin. They start at your ankles and work upward, peeling your skin away in one continuous piece. They literally peel you like fruit. You can feel the air hitting your exposed muscles. Your entire body burns like fire. They take their time ensuring the skin comes off intact. This ritual requires perfection. Blood runs in rivers down your body as they work. When they finish, you're completely skinless, just raw muscle. The priests are experts at keeping victims conscious all the way up until this point. One of them puts on your skin like clothing and dances in it, and they make you watch. You die watching a priest wear your flesh as a costume. The Aztecs believed this ritual brought fertility to their crops. So for them, your death is a celebration. Now let's talk about how you would die in feudal Japan around 1500. You are a samurai who has brought dishonor to your lord. There is only one way to restore your honor: seppuku, ritual suicide by disembowelment. You kneel on the tatami mat in formal position wearing white robes of death. Your katana lies before you, blade gleaming. You draw the katana with trembling hands. The blade is razor sharp, polished to mirror brightness. Your kaishakunin or executioner stands behind you with his sword ready. If you show weakness, he will end your suffering with a clean cut to the neck. You place the knife point against your left side just below the ribs. Your hands shake despite years of training. The first cut is the hardest. You drive the blade into your abdomen. It's like being stabbed with white hot iron. Blood soaks through your white robes. Following tradition, you drag the blade across your stomach from left to right. The cut opens your abdomen. Your intestines begin to spill out onto the mat. The pain is beyond anything you've ever experienced. You bite your tongue to keep from screaming, but your body betrays you. A scream escapes your lips despite your best efforts. This is weakness. This is shameful. Your kaishakunin sees your loss of control. His katana flashes down in a perfect arc. Your head separates from your shoulders in one clean cut. And now dishonor follows you into the afterlife. But maybe your lord chooses a different punishment. Perhaps he wants you to suffer longer. So he picks bamboo torture. They tie you over a young bamboo plant just as it's beginning to grow. The green shoot is sharp as a spear point. At first, you barely feel it, just a small pressure against your back. But bamboo grows fast. Very fast. Over literal hours, ladies and box heads, the bamboo pushes deeper into your body. The growing tip is harder than wood and sharp as a blade. You feel it drilling through your skin, then your muscle, then deeper still. By the second day, you feel it moving inside you as it continues growing. It pushes through your stomach, your lungs, your heart. On the third day, the green tip emerges from your chest. The bamboo has grown completely through you, but you're still alive. Bamboo grows slowly enough that your body adapts, sealing around the plant.
But the problem is it keeps growing bigger and bigger each time. Eventually, the plant grows so big it splits your body apart from the inside. When that happens, you die impaled on a plant, your body nothing more than fertilizer for its growth. The bamboo continues growing long after you're dead, reaching toward the sun with your blood in its roots. Let's talk about how you would be killed during the Crusades now. The year is 1187. You're a Crusader knight, miles from home, standing on the blood-soaked sands of the Holy Land. The battle has been raging for hours. Steel against steel. The sound never stops. Around you, men cry out in languages you don't understand. The air reeks of copper and death. Then you see it coming. A Saracen horseman charging straight at you. You raise your sword, too late. The lance pierces through your chainmail. The steel tip bursts through your back and suddenly you're looking down at 3 feet of wood and metal sticking out of your chest. You fall into the sand that's already soaked with blood from 100 other men just like you. The horse gallops away. Each step sends vibrations through the ground, through your broken body. You try to breathe, but there's something wrong.
Very gosh darn wrong.
Blood fills your mouth. You think about home, about your wife, about the cross you wore when you left England 3 years ago. The sounds of battle grow distant, then silence. Or maybe you're not so lucky. Maybe you're trapped inside the walls of Antioch, which is modern-day Turkey, and it's been 6 months since the siege began. The rats disappeared weeks ago. People ate them first, then the leather, then the grass growing between the stones. Now there's nothing left. You sit in a corner watching your friends waste away. Their eyes have sunk deep into their skulls. Their skin hangs loose like old parchment. Someone whispers that help is coming. But the whispers are getting quieter. Your stomach went silent days ago. Now there's just emptiness. You close your eyes and dream of bread.
But guys, the kicker is you never wake up.
Next, Mongol Empire around 1220. You are the governor of a city that dared to resist the Khan.
And that right there, ladies and box heads, was a terrible choice.
The Mongols have taken your walls. Your soldiers are dead. Your people are kneeling in the dirt, waiting to learn their fate.
And well, you already know your fate.
They drag you into the center of the courtyard. Genghis Khan himself sits watching from his throne,
Made from the bones of your predecessors.
A Mongol warrior approaches, carrying a small iron pot. Inside, molten silver bubbles and hisses. The heat rises from it like invisible snakes. They force your mouth open. The first drop hits your tongue and you understand what hell feels like. Your voice vanishes instantly. The scream that should have torn from your throat becomes nothing but steam. The silver pours down. It burns through your throat, your chest, everything inside you turning to fire and ash. Your body convulses once, then stillness. But perhaps you're not important enough for silver. Perhaps you're just another enemy soldier lying wounded on the battlefield after the Khan's army swept through it, attacking everyone in their way. You can't move, your leg is broken, maybe your back too, then you hear them coming, heavy footsteps. Laughter. The Mongols are setting up for their victory feast. Right on top of the battlefield. Right on top of you. They lay wooden planks across the wounded. You feel the weight pressing down on your chest. Then more planks. Then the food. Then the warriors. Your ribs snap like twigs. More men sit down above you. The weight grows heavier. You try to scream, but there's no space for your lungs to fill. Above you, they're laughing, eating, celebrating their victory. Below, you're being slowly crushed into the earth. Your bones break one by one, and still they feast. This next one you definitely have heard of in your history class. The Black Death. It starts with a headache, just a little one, nothing to worry about. But this is 1348, and in London, headaches can mean only one thing. The death has come for you. By the second day, the fever hits. You're burning up but shivering at the same time. Your wife brings you water, but her hands shake as she holds the cup. She's scared. She should be. By the third day, you find the first one. A swelling under your arm, hard as a stone and black as night. A bubo, the mark of the plague. It pulses with your heartbeat, growing larger every hour. Then another appears, in your groin, behind your ear. By the fourth day, you can't get out of bed. Your wife won't come near you anymore. She leaves food by the door and runs away.
In some twisted world, you kind of understand because, your funky ass would do the same.
The buboes are huge now. purple and black and ready to burst. The first one ruptures, leaking pus and blood onto your sheets. The smell is unbearable, but you can barely smell anything anyway. Your nose is bleeding, your mouth tastes like copper. You cough, black sputum sprays from your lips. The plague has reached your lungs. You think about your children, you pray they're far away. By the 7th day, you can't think at all, and then your brain just stops. But maybe you're luckier. Maybe you just collapse in the street and they throw you onto the death cart with the others. Bodies landing on bodies. It's heading for the plague pit outside the city walls, but the thing is, you're not dead yet, just unconscious. They dump you into the pit with the rest. You land in a pile of corpses 20 feet deep, and then you wake up. The weight of the dead presses down on you from all sides. You can't move, can't breathe. You try to scream, but your mouth fills with dirt and decay. Above you, they're shoveling more earth. Dirt rains down between the bodies. You claw at the corpse above you, trying to climb, but your strength is gone. The plague has made you weak, and soon it takes your life for real. No one will ever know you survived the fall. Now let's talk about how you would die during the Spanish Inquisition around 1478 to 1834. They came for you at dawn. 3 men in black robes carrying the cross and the warrant for your arrest. Heretic, they called you. You tried to run. They caught you anyway. Now you're in the dungeon beneath the cathedral, chained to a wooden table that's stained with the blood of 1,000 confessions. The Inquisitor approaches. He's a thin man with cold eyes and steady hands. He's done this before, many times. He turns the wheel and the ropes around your wrists grow tight. The rack. You've heard the stories, but you never thought you'd end up here. Your arms stretch, your shoulders burn. Confess, he says quietly. Confess your sins against God. But you have no sins to confess. You're innocent. The rope cuts into your skin, your shoulder dislocates. The pain shoots through your body like lightning. Confess! You try to hold out. You try to be strong.
Your other shoulder tears free.
Now you're screaming. You can't help it. Your spine stretches. Your ribs separate. You confess to witchcraft. You confess to heresy. You confess to things you've never heard of. Anything to make it stop. But it doesn't stop.
And your funky ass is dead.
Or maybe they decide you need purification by fire. The auto da fe. The act of faith. They drag you to the square in front of the cathedral. Thousands of people have gathered to watch you burn. They tie you to the stake. The wood is piled high around your feet. Someone in the crowd throws a stone. It hits your face. Blood runs down your cheek. The priest offers you one last chance to repent. You've already confessed to everything they wanted. What more do they want? The torch touches the kindling, the fire catches instantly. At first, it's just heat, warm air rising around your legs. Then the flames reach your feet. Your skin starts to blister. The pain climbs up your legs like a living thing. The fire grows higher. Your clothes catch fire. Your hair, the crowd cheers. The smoke fills your lungs first. That's the mercy. You suffocate before the flames reach your heart. But it takes forever. And the whole time they're watching, they're cheering, they think they're saving your soul. The next way you are about to die is definitely my favorite. We are about to talk about the Salem witch trials around the time 1692. They drag you from your cell at dawn. The accusation came from a 12-year-old girl who pointed her finger and screamed that you cursed her cow. Now you're gonna die for it. Giles Corey was pressed 3 days ago. They say his last words were more weight. Today, it's your turn. They strip you naked and lay you on the ground in the courtyard. The stones are already waiting in neat piles. Cold, heavy, perfect for crushing. The first stone lands on your chest. It's not so bad, just pressure. Then another and another. The weight grows. Your breathing becomes shallow. Confess, says the magistrate. Confess your compact with Satan. But you're not a witch. You're just a woman who grew herbs and healed the sick. More stones. Your ribs start to bend inward. The first one breaks. You gasp for air, but there's no room for your lungs to expand. More weight, you whisper. Because if you're going to die, you want it to be quick. Your ribs collapse like kindling. The crowd watches in silence. Some of them are your neighbors, people you've known for years. None of them speak up. More stones. Your vision blurs. You think about your garden, about the lavender you planted last spring. Who will water it now? Your sternum splits. Death comes pretty quickly after that, but let's consider this. Maybe they decide hanging is more fitting to your specific case. After all, witches are supposed to fly. Let's see how you do with a rope around your neck. They march you to Gallows Hill, half the town follows behind. Hundreds of feet on the dirt road. They put the noose around your neck, it's rougher than you expected. Coarse hemp that cuts into your throat. The minister asks if you have any last words. I am innocent, you say. The crowd murmurs. Some believe you, but not enough. The trapdoor opens. You fall, but the drop isn't far enough. Your neck doesn't break clean. Instead, you dangle. You can't breathe, can't swallow. Your hands claw at the rope, but they're tied behind your back. The crowd watches. Some of them are eating apples. Like it's entertainment. Now you're struggling to breathe. It hurts to inhale. Your vision goes dark around the edges. You swing slightly in the morning breeze. Finally, your body goes still, but your eyes stay open, staring at the people who killed you for nothing. Next, the Atlantic slave trade. The ship has been at sea for 6 weeks. Below deck, in the belly of the vessel, 400 human beings are chained together like cargo. You're one of them. The smell is unbearable. Vomit, excrement, death, and despair all mixed together. And on top of that, it's dark. People are dying every day. Yesterday, it was the woman next to you. Fever took her in the night. This morning, they dragged her body up the stairs. You heard the splash. That's what they do with the dead. Throw them overboard. Today, you can feel the fever starting in yourself. It begins as a chill, even though the air below deck is stifling hot. Then the sweats. Then the delirium. You call out for your mother, but she's an ocean away, sold to a different ship, a different fate. The fever burns through you like wildfire. By evening, you can't lift your head. The man chained beside you whispers a prayer in a language the slavers tried to beat out of you. But you remember. You remember home. The slavers come for you before dawn. They don't bother to check if you're actually dead. Close enough. They drag you up the stairs, your body bumping against each step. The ocean air hits your face. For a moment, you feel alive again. Then they lift you over the rail. The Atlantic swallows you whole.
But ladies and box heads, think about this.
Maybe you survive the crossing, maybe you make it to the plantation, but survival has its own price. The overseer doesn't like the way you looked at him. Insolence, he calls it. The punishment is 50 lashes. They tie you to the whipping post. Your wrists are raw from the shackles you've worn for months. The first crack of the whip splits the morning air. Fire races across your back, then another and another. By the 10th lash, your back is hamburger meat. By the 20th, you've stopped screaming. By the 30th, you can't feel anything below your shoulders. The overseer keeps counting. 41, 42, 43. Your body hangs limp against the post. The other slaves are forced to watch. A lesson, the overseer calls it. 48, 49, 50. Your heart stops before he finishes, but he completes the count anyway. Now let me tell you how you are going to die in the French Revolution. You used to be nobility, used to have servants, carriages, and a chateau in the countryside. Now you have a cell in the conciergerie prison and a date with Madame Guillotine. The crowd outside has been screaming for hours. They want blood, your blood. The guards come for you at noon.
Time to go, citizen.
They bind your hands behind your back and march you through the streets of Paris. The crowd follows, throwing stones and rotten fruit. A cabbage hits you in the face. The crowd cheers. The scaffold stands in the Place de la République. Thousands of people have gathered to watch you die. They're selling food, making bets, bringing their children. It's a festival, a celebration of your death. They force you to your knees and push your head into the lunette. The wooden collar closes around your neck. Above you, the blade waits. 45 pounds of angled steel suspended by a rope. You can see your reflection in the metal. The executioner raises his hand. The crowd falls silent. The blade drops. For a split second, there's no pain. Just the sound of steel cutting through bone. Your head drops into the basket. But you're still conscious, still aware. Your eyes move, your mouth opens and closes. The crowd erupts, they're cheering, dancing, celebrating. Your vision fades, but you can still hear them. Still hear them celebrating your death. Or maybe you don't make it to the guillotine. Maybe the mob finds you first. You're hiding in your mansion when they break down the door. Wood splintering, glass breaking, they flood your house. Peasants with pitchforks and kitchen knives. People you've never seen before screaming for your blood. Aristocrat, they shout. Enemy of the people. You run, but there's nowhere to go. They corner you in the drawing room. The first punch breaks your nose, blood pours down your face, then another fist, and another. They're all hitting you at once. Fists, boots, clubs, anything they can find. Someone has a kitchen knife. It cuts across your chest. Then another blade. This one finds your stomach. You fall to the floor. They keep hitting, keep stabbing. No trial, no judge, no mercy. Just rage and violence and blood.
Your damn blood.
You try to speak, to beg, to explain, but they don't want explanations. They want revenge. For centuries of oppression, for decades of hunger, for all the times you didn't see them as human. The blows keep coming until there's nothing left to hit.
Now, let me take you to the Victorian era around the time 1850. You're 7 years old. Too small for the factory, too weak for the workhouse. But you're perfect for the chimneys. Mr. Grimsby bought you from the orphanage for 5 shillings. Climbing boys, he calls children like you. You call it hell. The flue is narrow, barely wide enough for your tiny body. Your knees and elbows bleed as you crawl upward through the darkness. The soot fills your lungs, your eyes, your mouth. Everything tastes like ash. You can't stop coughing, but you have to keep climbing. Mr. Grimsby is waiting below with his stick. The chimney narrows as you go higher. The walls press against your shoulders, then your chest. Then you can't move at all. You're stuck, wedged tight between the sooty bricks 20 feet above the ground. You try to back down, but the passage is too narrow. You try to go up, but there's no room. You scream, "Help! Help me!" But the sound just echoes in the flue. Mr. Grimsby can't hear you. The family upstairs can't hear you. Nobody can hear you. You scream until your voice gives out. Then silence. The soot fills your mouth when you try to breathe. Your chest feels tight, compressed by the narrow walls. Hours pass. The darkness is complete. You think about the other climbing boys, the ones who disappeared. Now you know where they went. Your breathing gets shallower. The walls seem to be closing in, or maybe you're swelling up. Either way, you can't move, can't breathe, can't scream. And so you accept your fate. Your body will remain there for weeks before they even discover you. But what if you're the type to avoid the chimneys? Then maybe you end up in the tenements instead. 7 families crammed into a basement room. No windows, no ventilation, no hope. That's where the cholera finds you. It starts with stomach cramps, then the vomiting. But what comes up isn't food. It's black water, like something dredged from the Thames. Your neighbors back away. They know what this means. Cholera, the disease that's been sweeping through London like wildfire. The black vomit won't stop. Your body is turning itself inside out. Someone runs to get the authorities. But they don't come to help. They come to quarantine. They nail boards across your door, trap you inside with the disease and the dying. The cramping
Gets worse, your skin turns blue from dehydration. Your pulse becomes unsteady. Through the walls, you can hear your neighbors whispering. They're afraid the disease will spread. They're afraid you'll contaminate them. So they leave you to die alone. The black water keeps coming until there's nothing left inside you, until you're just an empty shell in a room full of death. The authorities will burn the building down when it's over. Purification by fire. But by then, you'll be long gone.
Let me take you back to history class once again, and we're talking about how you would die in the American Civil War.
The musket ball hits you just below the ribs. Not the crack of the gun, that was seconds ago. The crack of your spine. You fall face first into the muddy cornfield outside Gettysburg. The stalks tower above you like golden soldiers. Around you, the battle rages on. Cannon fire shakes the earth. Men scream, horses scream, the very air seems to scream. But you can't move. The bullet is lodged somewhere deep in your belly, and every breath sends fire through your gut. You try to call for a medic. Help, you whisper, but your voice is lost in the chaos of war. The sound of men dying all around you. Hours pass. Soon the flies find you. They land on your face, your wounds, the blood pooling beneath you. You try to swat them away, but your arm won't obey. The paralysis spreads through your limbs. More flies. The battlefield grows quieter as the day wears on. The fighting has moved somewhere else. You're alone now, alone with the corn and the flies and the pain that's eating you alive from the inside. You think about home, about your wife Sarah, and the baby you've never seen.
Will they honestly even know you're dead?
The flies are in your mouth now. Your vision blurs. You close your eyes and listen to the distant cannon fire. Maybe they find you before you die. But luck is relative in wartime. They carry you to the field hospital, a canvas tent filled with screaming men and the smell of gangrene. The surgeon takes one look at your shattered leg and reaches for his saw. Hold him down, he tells the orderlies. No anesthesia, no morphine, no mercy. Just a leather strap between your teeth and a prayer that you'll pass out before he's finished. The saw bites into your thigh. You scream through the leather. The sound that comes out isn't human. Through the bone now. White-hot agony shoots through every nerve in your body. You can feel everything. The teeth of the saw, the splintering bone, the warm blood pooling on the table. You try to pass out. Beg your brain to shut down.
But nope, you're still up.
Your vision goes white around the edges. Your leg hits the floor, but you're still awake, still feeling everything. The surgeon reaches for the hot iron to cauterize the wound. The smell of your own flesh burning fills the tent. That's when you finally scream loud enough to wake the dead. And there are plenty of dead to wake. I know everyone is going to remember the Titanic. Now, let's put you in it. The ship is going down. You know it. Everyone knows it. But knowing and accepting are two different things. You're in third class, deep in the belly of the ship. The water's already knee-deep and rising fast. People pushing past you, climbing over each other to reach the stairs. But the gates are locked. They always lock the gates. Can't have the poor people mixing with the rich. Not even when they're all about to die. Fists pounding on metal. Let us out! Let us out! But the stewards are gone, fled to save themselves. The water is waist deep now, ice-cold Atlantic seawater. It steals the breath from your lungs. The cold is like a punch to the chest. Your muscles seize up instantly. People are screaming, praying, drowning. A woman holds her baby above her head, trying to keep the child's face out of the water. But the water keeps rising, chest deep now. You can't feel your legs anymore. The cold has stolen them. Someone grabs onto you, dragging you down, under the water. You fight your way back to the surface, but there's less air now. The ceiling is only inches away. People are disappearing under the black water, one by one, like the sea is swallowing them whole. You take one last breath. Then the water closes over your head. The screaming stops. Everything is silent beneath the surface. The cold makes everything numb. You open your eyes and see bodies floating around you like ghosts. Then you close your eyes for good. But what if you had made it to the deck? What if you're one of the lucky ones who escapes the sinking ship? Well, I got news for you, but the ocean is waiting. You jump from the deck into the Atlantic. The water hits you like a hammer, 28 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to stop your heart in minutes. You gasp and swallow seawater. Salt burns your throat. Around you, hundreds of people are thrashing in the water, screaming, calling for help. But the lifeboats are already rowing away, too afraid to come back. Too afraid of being swamped by the desperate. You try to swim, but your muscles won't obey. The cold has paralyzed them. Your breath comes in short, visible puffs, like tiny stars in the freezing air. Your fingers go numb first, then your toes, then your arms and legs. The cold creeps inward like death itself. People around you are going quiet, one by one. Another soul vanishes beneath the black water. Another. You try to stay afloat, but it's getting harder. Your waterlogged clothes pull you down. The cold saps your strength. You go under, fight your way back up. But your movements are getting weaker, slower, under again. This time you don't have the strength to surface. The ocean takes you gently, almost kindly. Your last thought is how quiet it is down here, how peaceful. Next, let me tell you about how you're going to die in World War I. The year is 1917. The gas shells land with a soft whistle, not the explosive crack of artillery, just a gentle hiss. You're in the trenches at Ypres and you know that sound.
Gas. Gas! Gas! Someone screams.
The alarm bell rings, but it's too late. You're already breathing it. Mustard gas, the invisible killer. At first, nothing happens. You think maybe you're safe, maybe the wind carried it away, then your eyes start to burn.
Tears streaming down your face, but they don't help.
The burning gets worse. Your throat starts to close. A wet, raspy cough that brings up blood. Your skin begins to blister. Red welts appear on your arms, your face, anywhere the gas touched you. More blood. Your lungs are dissolving, literally melting from the inside. You stumble toward the medical tent, but your vision is gone. The gas has burned out your eyes. Pink foam bubbles from your mouth. Your own lung tissue liquefied. Other soldiers avoid you. They know there's nothing they can do. You're a walking dead man. You collapse in the mud, drowning in your own dissolving lungs. The gas has turned your respiratory system into soup. You can't speak, can't breathe, can't see, but you can still listen. The sounds of war rage around you. Machine guns, artillery, men dying. Just another day in hell. Your body convulses once. But think. What if you were able to avoid the gas? Maybe you survive long enough to go over the top. The attack begins. You climb out of the trench and run toward the German lines. Machine gun fire cuts through the morning air. Men fall around you like wheat before a scythe. Bodies hitting the mud, but you keep running through the barbed wire, through the shell craters, through no man's land. You make it to their trench. Jump down into the enemy position. Face to face with a German soldier. He's young, maybe 18. Blonde hair, blue eyes, terrified, just like you.
He has a bayonet, you have a bayonet.
For a moment, you just stare at each other. Two boys who should be home with their families. Then he moves. The blade slides between your ribs. You feel it pierce your lung, your heart. You look into his eyes as he kills you. See your own fear reflected back. He's crying. So are you. You fall backward into the mud. He pulls out the bayonet. Metal against bone, your blood mixes with the rain.
With the blood of 1,000 other boys who died for nothing. Now, ladies and boxheads, you join them in the afterlife. Okay, we can't talk about how you would die in World War I without simply talking about how you would die in World War II.
The year is 1945. The B-29s appear in the sky like silver birds, hundreds of them, flying in perfect formation toward Dresden. You're down below, huddled in your cellar with your neighbors, waiting. The sound of engines fills the air. Then the first bombs fall. The house above you shakes, dust rains from the ceiling, another and another. But these aren't ordinary bombs, these are incendiaries. Fire bombs, designed to turn your city into hell. The first fires start, small at first, then they grow and grow. The fire spreads from building to building, block to block. It creates its own wind, a firestorm. The cellar is getting hot, then hotter. The temperature outside reaches 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. Hot enough to melt metal, hot enough to turn human beings into ash. The air itself catches fire. You try to escape the cellar, but the door handle burns your hand. Your skin sticks to the metal. The oxygen is being sucked out of the air by the flames. You can't breathe. The temperature keeps rising, your clothes catch fire, then your hair, then your skin. You're burning alive, but the real horror is the air. There's no oxygen left. You suffocate before the flames finish you. The firestorm consumes everything. Buildings, trees, people. When it's over, Dresden is gone, wiped from the earth, and you're just a shadow burned into the pavement. Or maybe you're not in Dresden, maybe you're in Poland, in a place that doesn't have a name anymore, just a number.
Auschwitz.
You're standing in line with 100 other people, naked, shivering, afraid. They told you this was a shower, but there are no drains in the floor, no shower heads on the walls, just vents in the ceiling. The door slams shut. The sound echoes in the concrete chamber, locks turning. Someone starts to cry. A child maybe, then an adult, then everyone. You press against the door, but it won't budge. Fists pounding on metal. Let us out, please! But no one's listening, no one cares. You're just a number to them, a statistic, a problem to be solved. The first gas enters through the vents. Zyklon B, you smell almonds. Sweet, bitter almonds. More gas. The crying gets louder, more desperate. You hold your breath, but you can't hold it forever. When you finally inhale, the gas burns your lungs. Your chest tightens. Your vision blurs. People are collapsing around you. Bodies hitting the concrete. You try to climb toward the vents. Try to find clean air, but there isn't any. Your movements become sluggish, uncoordinated.
The gas is shutting down your nervous system, and then, guys, you fall.
Your last thought is of your mother, her face, her voice, the lullaby she used to sing, then nothing. And I can't end this video without talking about how you would die today. The ventilator breathes for you in and out. Mechanical, precise, emotionless. You're in the ICU at St. Mary's Hospital. COVID-19, they said. The new variant. More contagious. More deadly. The heart monitor counts down your remaining beats. Through the glass wall, you can see nurses in hazmat suits. They look like aliens, but they're the only human contact you have. Your family can't visit. Too dangerous, they said. Too risky. The ventilator keeps working, but your lungs are failing, scarred by the virus, filled with fluid. Your heart rate is dropping. A nurse checks your chart through the glass, makes a note, moves on to the next patient, the next number. You try to speak, but the tube down your throat won't let you. You try to move, but the sedatives keep you still. The machine breathes. You don't. Through the window, you can see the city, life going on, cars driving, people walking, the world spinning, but you're trapped here, behind glass, dying alone. Your daughter calls on FaceTime. Her face appears on the tablet by your bed. She's crying. "I love you, Dad," she says. But you can't answer. Can't tell her you love her too. Can't say goodbye. Your heart is stopping. The nurses rush in, but it's too late. You're already gone. Died alone. Surrounded by machines instead of family. By technology instead of love. The nurse calls your daughter, tells her you passed peacefully, but it wasn't peaceful, it was lonely. The loneliest death in human history.
This is what dying in every single natural disaster would be like. And ladies and box heads, let's start off with a volcanic eruption. Before a volcano erupts, it rumbles in warning. It can rumble for days, months, or even just a few hours before all hell breaks loose. Let's just say you live somewhere near a volcano, and it's been making some strange noises for days. You wouldn't think it's weird because you think you have time. Well, buddy, you're dead wrong. Because volcanic eruptions have no signs to tell you that time is up and things are gonna go kaboomy. The eruption explodes out of nowhere. The entire top of the mountain vaporizes in a blast that can be heard at least 500 miles away. A column of rocks and superheated gas as hot as 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit shoots 15 miles into the sky at anywhere between 450 and 900 miles per hour, spreading like a nuclear mushroom cloud. And you little boxhead, you're just 10 miles away. And for some strange reason, you think you're safe. The pyroclastic flow comes first. An avalanche of superheated gas and volcanic debris is racing down the mountainside at, well, 100 miles per hour. Like, hello? That's as fast as you can hit the subscribe button. Golly. Anyways, it's 1,300 degrees Fahrenheit. And oh boy, is it hungry for everything in its path. You see it in the distance. The trees vanish so damn fast, it's almost like my daddy. Okay, I'm done with the jokes. Any buildings disappear, the landscape itself gets erased. You run for your car, but you might as well just try to outrun a rocket. The heat hits you first, even at a 350-foot distance. It seriously feels like someone opened the door to hell. The air itself becomes hostile, so hot it hurts to breathe. Your skin starts to prickle and burn like you're a marshmallow in a bonfire. Then the flow reaches you. Your clothes burst out into flames. If you're wearing cheap materials like polyester, they will melt straight into your skin, while natural fibers like silk and cotton vaporize in seconds, basically leaving you naked and burning in a cloud of gas hot enough to melt copper. Your skin starts cooking immediately. First degree burns spread across your entire body in seconds. Then second degree blisters. Then third degree burns cook through to the muscle and bone beneath. The superheated gas hits your lungs like molten metal. Your airways instantly swell shut as the soft tissue inside your throat and chest literally cooks on contact. Buddy, your whole respiratory system liquefies. But you don't feel it. Not really. Because the superheated air has already fried the nerve endings in your skin. So seriously, you almost can't even feel it. Like imagine you're burning alive, but your body can't even tell you about it anymore. Your blood starts to boil, and I mean actually boil. The proteins in your brain fry and change color like eggs in a frying pan. Your thoughts are scattering, then vanish entirely as your conscious dissolves in the heat. Your heart tries to pump liquid fire through vessels that are collapsing. It manages only 3 or 4 beats before giving up entirely. So in this whole process, you're dead in no more than 30 seconds, if not instantly. But your body still sizzling. When the rescue workers arrive weeks later, when it's finally safe for them to enter the area, they find heaps and heaps of ash. Not a single body intact. If you're lucky, that's all that's left of you. But maybe, let's just say you're outside the pyroclastic flow zone, which is typically 6 to 10 miles around the volcano. You would suffocate on volcanic ash that cuts your lungs, like microscopic glass. Or maybe, let's just say you avoid the immediate eruption. You would die slowly of starvation during the volcanic winter that follows. Or maybe you're even further away. Unfortunately, the acid rain will dissolve you gradually over the next few weeks. Now let's talk about how you would die in a tornado. The sound of a tornado is so loud it drowns out all of the sirens blaring to tell you it's coming. The tornado is still a mile away when you start to see it clearly. A massive black rope reaching from the ground to the storm clouds. Unlike the cartoons, it's not moving in a straight line, it's dancing. You don't know which way it's about to step each passing second. You're in your basement like the safety precautions tell you to be, pressed against the concrete wall, praying to whatever gods might be listening. The house above you is shaking so violently that the dust and debris rain down from the ceiling. Crack! Bang! That's your neighbor's house coming apart. You can hear individual pieces of furniture being ripped away and thrown into the spinning hell above you. And buddy, your house is next. The pressure in your ear builds. Like you're seriously in an airplane that's diving nose first towards the subscribe button. Your eardrums feel like they're about to burst from the massive low pressure system passing overhead. Whoosh! Then the roof comes off. Not gradually, all at once. Like God seriously just reached down and peeled your house like a banana. Suddenly the basement isn't a shelter anymore. It's the bottom of a blender. The wind doesn't just push you down, it lifts you. 200 miles per hour gusts of wind grab your body like invisible hands and tear you away from the wall you're clinging onto. You're airborne before you realize what's happening. Boom! You slam into the opposite wall as you're going up, and you slammed hard. But ladies and box heads, there is no time to process the pain because the wind grabs you again and throws you into the furnace. Metal ducts wrap around your leg like a steel tentacle. The sharp edges slice through your jeans and into your flesh. Blood sprays, but it's immediately sucked up into the vortex above you. And if you haven't noticed already, you're not in your basement anymore, you're in the tornado. Everything's spinning, debris whips past your head at lethal speeds. I'm talking about chunks of wood, pieces of cars. Everything is turned into missiles. A random kitchen knife stabs itself into your thigh. A piece of rebar punctures your abdomen. You don't know what's gonna hit you next. It's all so random. You try to scream, but you physically can't. The air pressure is so low that your saliva in your mouth starts to boil. Pressure changes would normally cause your sinuses to swell up. This pressure change is so intense, it actually causes them to collapse inwards. Blood vessels in your eyes burst from the pressure differential. And the tornado is feeding itself, it's growing stronger. And you're part of its meal now. You're now 200 feet up, 300 feet, 500 feet. The ground sort of looks like a Lego set below you. Cars are scattered like dice. Houses are reduced to fragments. Then the tornado gets bored with you. Slam! It spits you out like a cherry pit. The fall takes forever. You tumble through the air, arms and legs flailing uselessly. You hit the earth with the force of a meteor. Every bone in your body breaks all at once. Your spine snaps in 3 places. Your skull fractures like an eggshell. Internal organs rupture and bleed into body cavities that are no longer in the right shape. But somehow, impossibly, you're still conscious. That is, for a few more seconds. Long enough to see the tornado moving away seeking fresh victims. Long enough to taste the blood filling your mouth. Long enough to realize that you've just landed in what used to be your neighbor's living room, 300 yards from where you started. And ladies and box heads, I don't think I need to say it, but right after this, you would be dead. But let's consider some other possibilities. Maybe the tornado misses your house. Now you get to die from infected wounds because the nearest hospital got flattened. Or maybe you're smart and shelter under an overpass. Now the concentrated winds can crush your car like a tin can while you're trapped inside. Let's move on to how you would die from an avalanche. When you go on a skiing trip with your best box heads, you don't anticipate the mountains killing you. The snow doesn't look dangerous, it's pristine, white, beautiful. Like something from a Christmas card. One fine day, let's say you're skiing the backcountry, carving perfect turns through powder that sparkles in the morning sun. Then you hear it. Crack, like someone stepping on a dry twig. But that tiny sound just sentenced you to death. The snowpack suddenly fractures beneath your skis. What was solid ground a second ago is now a moving river of snow. The slab you're standing on 100 yards wide and 3 feet thick breaks free and starts sliding down the mountain. You try to ski off to the side, but the avalanche is faster. Much, much faster. Within seconds, it's already moving at 40 miles per hour and accelerating. The snow beneath your skis gives away and suddenly you're falling. The avalanche tosses you around, you tumble head over heels. Skis ripped from your feet, poles torn from your hands. Snow forces its way into your mouth, your nose, and your eyes. You try to swim like they taught you in avalanche safety class, stay on top. Keep your head up, fight for the surface. But fighting an avalanche is like fighting gravity itself. Hundreds of tons of snow are moving around you. And you're just a 150-pound speck caught in the flow. The snow certainly doesn't care about your swimming technique. The world goes white as you're pulled under. The avalanche stops as suddenly as it started. The snow that was flowing like water a second ago sets like concrete. You're buried 6 feet down in a tomb of compressed snow that's harder than bricks. You try to move, but you can't. The snow has molded around your body like plaster, holding you in whatever funky position you landed in. Your arms are pinned to your sides, your legs are locked in place. Like ladies in box heads, you can't even turn your head. Panic sets in, you try to scream, but your mouth is packed with snow. The sound gets absorbed by the white tomb around you. No one can hear you, no one knows where you are. You try to dig, but you can't move your arms. Try to kick, can't move your legs. You are completely immobilized. The snow extends in every direction. Your breath fogs in the tiny air pocket around your face. But each exhale adds moisture and carbon dioxide to the tiny space. The snow around your mouth starts to melt from your warm breath, then refreezes into an ice mask that seals off your airways. At this point, you can't breathe either. Carbon dioxide builds up in your bloodstream. You can feel your lungs inside burning. Your heart races, trying to squeeze more oxygen from blood that's already depleted. Your vision starts to tunnel as your brain begins shutting down non-essential functions. 5 minutes pass, 10, 15. This is when your body temperature starts dropping. The snow is sucking heat from your core faster than your metabolism can produce it. Your fingers and toes go numb first, then your hands and feet. 20 minutes, 30, hyperthermia starts to set in. Your thoughts, they become sluggish, confused. What's kind of scary is you forget why you're scared. The cold doesn't seem so bad anymore. In fact, you start to feel warm, almost sleepy. It's like being on heavy, wait, I think YouTube's gonna ban me if I say this word, but that good kush. Your heart rate starts to slow down. Each beat is weaker than the last. Your blood thickens as your core temperature drops below 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Below 85 degrees Fahrenheit, below 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Your brain starts shutting down, memories are fading, vision blurs, the pain fades away. 35 minutes after the avalanche stopped, your heart gives one final weak flutter and stops beating. When they finally find you, if they find you, you'll be perfectly preserved. Eyes open, skin blue, white, and hard as marble. But maybe, let's suppose you're only partially buried. Just like with an earthquake, you experience rescue death. When they dig you out and the toxins from your dying legs flood your system. Or maybe you avoid the main avalanche. You could fall into a tree and, well, suffocate upside down in powder snow. Maybe your beacon works. That's a type of emergency locator beacon, a radio transmitter and receiver, made for the purpose of finding people buried under snow. But the secondary avalanche triggered by the rescue effort could bury everyone trying to save you, and you're already buried, so you're dead too.
Now let's talk about how you would die in an earthquake. Let's say you're sitting in your living room when it starts. It's a low rumble at first, then the ground starts to shake. Crack! The floor beneath you now begins to move like a mechanical bull trying to throw you off. Your coffee mug shatters on the hardwood. The walls around you start screaming, and I mean literally screaming, as the wood and drywall tear apart. You try to stand up, bad move. The ground is like a surfboard on a big wave, and you're thrown sideways into the bookshelf. 200 pounds of books and wood come down on your legs. You hear the snap before you feel it. That's your femur breaking like a dry stick. And that's just if you're lucky enough that it fell on your legs. The pain hits like lightning as you try to crawl out from under the debris. But the shaking won't stop. The house is coming apart around you. The ceiling beam above your head groans, then gives way. 300 pounds of timber and plaster slam down across your chest and abdomen. Now you can't breathe, you try to expand your lungs, but there's a whole house sitting on your ribcage. Each breath becomes a struggle. Panic sets in as you realize you're pinned. Completely pinned. The weight pressing down on you is now crushing your internal organs like grapes in a wine press. Your kidneys start failing first. The massive pressure damages the delicate filtering system and toxins begin flooding your bloodstream. You don't know it yet, but you've got maybe 6 hours before the crush syndrome kills you from the inside out. This is when the crushing of your body causes the release of toxic muscle cell components into your body, leading to kidney failure and death. Minutes pass. The shaking finally stops, but unfortunately, your nightmare is just beginning. The dust in the air is so thick you can taste it. Concrete particles, asbestos, wood fragments, all of it coating your throat like sandpaper. Every breath feels like scraping sandpaper now. Every cough brings up blood. Your legs will now be going numb because the circulation is cutting off. The massive weight above you would squeeze the life out of your lower body. Muscle tissue starts dying, toxins build up, your own blood becomes poison. Hours crawl by, you're getting weaker, thirstier, the crush injuries are releasing potassium into your bloodstream, and your heart doesn't like that. It starts beating irregularly. Your heart's rhythm becomes chaotic. Arrhythmia sets in. Then your kidneys shut down completely. The toxins from your dying muscle tissue overwhelm them. Your body starts drowning in its own waste. Confusion sets in. You can't think straight. Can't focus. And then you die poisoned by your own body. If you still somehow survive everything I've described so far, you would still die of dehydration 3 days later, trapped in debris with rescuers 20 feet away who can't hear your weakening calls for help. But let's try to be positive for a second. Let's say maybe you're only partially trapped. Maybe the beam caught your legs instead of your chest. Maybe you can still breathe, still think clearly. Congratulations, now you get to experience rescue death. What's that, you ask? The moment they lift that debris, all those toxins released in your crushed legs would flood back into your circulation. Your blood pressure crashes. Your heart stops from the potassium surge. Or, okay, let's say maybe you escape the building before it crushes you, only to face the fires that follow an earthquake. Everywhere around the city, there's gas lines that are ruptured. What if you died from a hurricane instead? You'll hear it first. The wind is loud. It's screaming like a madman, going at 180 miles per hour. It has the power to turn your neighborhood into a war zone. That stop sign across the street, it just went airborne and took out your neighbor's window. The oak tree you used to climb as a kid, it's horizontal now. You're huddled in your bathroom, the only interior room left with walls that aren't bending and breaking like wet cardboard. But you would still feel the house shaking around you. The roof above your head would start lifting and settling, lifting and settling. But this isn't even the worst of it. Eventually you would hear it, a sound like a freight train mixed with 1,000 chainsaws. The storm surge is coming. Whoosh. Water explodes through your front door. In seconds it's knee deep, then waist deep. The current is so strong it's like being dragged by a pickup truck. You try to grab the bathroom door frame, but your fingers obviously slip. The water is ice cold and full of debris. Chunks of wood, glass, metal, all of it swirling around you. A piece of roofing material the size of a dinner table slams into your shoulder. Crack. Your collarbone snaps like a wishbone. The pain is immediate and nauseating. But there's no time to process it because now you're underwater. The surge has filled your house completely. Now you're tumbling. Thud. The current slams you into the refrigerator, then the couch, then the wall. Every piece of furniture that's in there floating with you. Each impact drives the air from your lungs, but there's no air to replace it. Now your body starts panicking if it wasn't already. Heart rate spikes, blood pressure soars, your lungs scream for oxygen they can't get. 30 seconds underwater, 45 seconds, a minute. Carbon dioxide builds up in your bloodstream. Your vision starts tunneling. The pain in your chest becomes unbearable. You try to swim up, but which way is up? The water is black with mud and debris. You can't see anything. Your body starts involuntarily gasping. That's the worst thing you can do underwater. Your mouth opens and instead of air, you suck in a lungful of contaminated floodwater. It tastes like sewage and gasoline. The water floods your airways. Your vocal cords quickly try to shut, but it's too late. Liquid floods into your lungs and they start drowning from the inside. At this point, each breath becomes a wet, gurgling wheeze. Your brain starts shutting down from lack of oxygen. The pain fades into a dreamy confusion. Now it all feels distant, unreal. Your heart starts skipping beats, then stops entirely. The last thing you feel is the cold, not from the water, but from your core temperature plummeting as your circulation fails. You don't wash up on shore for 3 days. But hold on a second, maybe you reach the second floor before the surge completely drowns you. Great. Now, unfortunately, you get to experience hypothermia as you wait for rescue in 50-degree Fahrenheit water for hours. Your core temperature drops until your heart just stops. Maybe you survived the surge, but if you accidentally drank the contaminated floodwater, which you probably did, you would die of cholera a week later. Let's suppose somehow you make it to a hospital. You would still die from sepsis caused by the bacteria that entered through every cut the debris made on your body. Unfortunately, the chances of survival are super low. Now let's talk about how you would die from a wildfire. Wildfires are often smelled before they are even spotted. It's a stench that makes your nose burn and your eyes water. It's not just wood smoke, it's literally everything burning. Plastic, paint, chemicals, houses full of modern gadgets going up in toxic flames. The fire is still miles away, but the smoke is already here. You think you have time, you think you can pack a few things, grab the cat, get in the car, and drive to safety. Most of the time, you're wrong. The fire doesn't march toward you slowly, it explodes unpredictably like a bomb. Wind-driven flames jump from treetop to treetop. What was a distant glow 5 minutes ago is now a wall of orange fire racing towards you at 60 miles per hour. The heat hits you first. Even at a distance, it feels like opening an oven door. You run for your car, but the smoke is getting thicker. Each breath is like inhaling sandpaper soaked in lighter fluid. Your throat burns, your lungs spasm. You start coughing uncontrollably, and each cough brings up black phlegm mixed with blood. The particles in the smoke aren't just carbon, they're microscopic shards of glass and metal from everything the fire has consumed. With every breath, you're inhaling tiny razors that slice up your airways from the inside. Your eyes stream tears. The smoke is so caustic, it's literally burning your corneas. You can barely see the car through the stinging, chemical-infused air. You make it to the driver's seat, but your hands are shaking so badly you can barely turn the key. That's the carbon monoxide poisoning. The invisible killer is already in your bloodstream, stealing oxygen from your red blood cells. Now you would start to feel dizzy, nauseous, confused. The engine turns over, but as you back out of the driveway, you realize the road is gone. Not blocked, I mean gone. A river of molten orange is flowing where the asphalt used to be. The fire has jumped the highway and is now surrounding you. You're trapped in a ring of hell. The temperature inside the car starts climbing. 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 110 degrees. The plastic dashboard begins to warp. The vinyl seats start to smoke. Even with the windows up and the AC blasting, the heat is overwhelming. You try to drive through a gap in the flames, but the moment you get close, the paint on your car starts bubbling. The tires begin to melt, the engine overheats and dies with a mechanical death rattle. Now you're on foot in a furnace. The air is 300 degrees Fahrenheit and full of superheated gases. Each breath feels like swallowing lava. Your throat swells shut almost immediately. Soon your clothes would catch fire. The synthetic fibers melt into your skin like napalm. The cotton burns away in seconds, leaving you exposed to the radiating heat. Now your skin starts cooking. First degree burns spread across your body. Then second degree blisters pop up and burst. The pain is indescribable, like being pressed against a giant branding iron that covers your entire body. But the worst part isn't the burning. It's the suffocation. The fire is consuming all the oxygen around you. What little air remains is mostly carbon monoxide and cyanide gas from burning plastics. Your blood can't carry oxygen anymore. It's carrying this poison instead. Now your brain starts shutting down. Hallucinations flicker through your consciousness. You see loved ones calling to you through the flames. You think you hear rescue helicopters that aren't there. Your muscles stop responding. You collapse onto the superheated ground, where the asphalt burns through what's left of your clothes and into your flesh. Unconsciousness comes as a mercy, because then you die without feeling the pain, but your body keeps burning for hours. Now let's say instead of stepping out the way you did, maybe you shelter in your house. You would slowly cook to death as the building becomes an oven around you. Or maybe you escape the immediate fire and are able to drive off successfully. You would die of smoke inhalation injury weeks later as your scarred lungs fail. Or maybe you survive completely. You would still develop lung cancer 5 years later from all the toxins you inhaled. There's no escape. Moving on to floods. It starts with just a trickle. Water seeping under your front door. Nothing dramatic, nothing scary. Just a small puddle that you mop up with a towel while shaking your head at the broken gutter outside. But the trickle becomes a stream. The stream becomes a flood. The water explodes through your door without warning. In seconds, it's ankle deep, then knee deep. The current is so strong it knocks you off your feet and sends you sliding across the kitchen floor. You grab the refrigerator handle, but the water keeps rising. The current is trying to sweep you out the door and into the raging torrent outside. And it's cold. So cold it takes your breath away and makes your muscles seize up like you've been hit with a taser. 50 degrees Fahrenheit water that sucks the heat from your body 25 times faster than air. Within 2 minutes, you can't feel your fingers. Within 5, your arms are too stiff to swim properly. The cold is eating you alive from the outside in, shutting down your circulation and making your heart work harder and harder to pump blood through your vessels. You try to swim to the staircase, but your body isn't responding the way it should. Your movements are clumsy, uncoordinated, you're hypothermic, and your brain is starting to misfire. The water tastes disgusting. It's a toxic soup of everything the current has picked up along the way. Chemical runoff, raw sewage, decomposing animal carcasses, all of it swirling around you in a brown, stinking mess. You manage to grab the banister, but a piece of debris, which looks like part of a fence maybe, slams into your ribs. Crack. You feel them break, and suddenly breathing becomes agony. Each attempt to breathe sends a sharp stabbing pain through your chest. The water is at your neck now. Soon it'll be over your head, and then you lose your grip on the banister. The current grabs you and drags you out the front door. You're being tumbled like a sock in a washing machine now. The world spins. Up becomes down. Left becomes right. You don't know which way is the surface. Your lungs are screaming for air, but every time you try to breathe, you get a mouthful of contaminated water instead. It floods your airways, and your vocal cords spasm shut in a desperate attempt to keep it out of your lungs. The water forces its way past your body's defenses and floods your alveoli, the tiny air sacs where your blood exchanges carbon dioxide for oxygen. Except now there's no oxygen. Just that disgusting toxic soup. Your chest burns as your lungs try to cough up the water, but there's nowhere for it to go. You're drowning from the inside out while being swept downstream by a current that doesn't care if you live or die. Panic floods your system with adrenaline, but it only makes things worse. Your heart races, burning through what little oxygen remains in your bloodstream. Your vision starts to tunnel. The world gets dark around the edges. You stop struggling, not because you want to give up, but because your muscles have no energy left. Hypothermia and oxygen deprivation have turned your body into dead weight. The last thing you feel is the cold, deep, bone-penetrating cold that seems to freeze your soul as well as your flesh. Your heart stops beating, your brain shuts down, and your body becomes just another piece of debris in the flood, dead. If somehow you manage to make it to the second floor before the flood consumed you, you could die of dehydration while surrounded by water you can't drink. Or maybe you survive the flood somehow because you just swim too well. You would die of cholera from the contaminated water you swallowed. Or maybe you're rescued. You might die in a hospital overwhelmed with other flood victims. Finally, let's talk about how you would die from a tsunami. When a tsunami comes, the water doesn't look dangerous at first. In fact, it looks almost peaceful as it rushes inland. There's no giant wave to warn you, no dramatic wall of water, just the ocean flowing a bit further than it usually does. That peaceful look is a lie, and the ocean water is flowing in much further than it usually does. The water hits you at 35 miles per hour, and it's not just water. It's a moving concrete wall packed with cars, trees, houses, and pieces of other people's lives. The impact lifts you off your feet and throws you backwards like you weigh nothing. You tumble through it like a rag doll. Something hard, maybe a stop sign, maybe a piece of roof, slams into your skull. Stars explode across your vision and warm blood streams down your face. But there's no time to assess the damage because now you're underwater, and the tsunami is playing pinball with your body. Bang! A submerged car hood catches you in the ribs. Crack. A tree branch whips across your back. Crunch. Something that might have been a refrigerator pins your leg against a lamppost. The water is black with mud and debris. You can't see which way is up, can't see what's about to hit you next. You're just a human ping pong ball being bounced around in nature's arcade game. Your lungs are burning. You need air, but every time you surface, the debris-laden water slaps you back down. When you finally do manage to snatch a breath, it tastes like motor oil and sewage. The current changes direction, and now it's pulling you back toward the ocean. But it's not the same water that came in. It's carrying everything it picked up during its visit inland. Cars, houses, bodies. You claw toward the surface, but you're running out of strength, running out of air, running out of time. Your chest starts spasming as your body tries to force you to breathe. Your diaphragm contracts involuntarily, and your mouth opens despite your desperate attempt to keep it closed. Contaminated water floods your throat. Your vision goes red, then black around the edges. The pain in your chest becomes unbearable as your lungs fill with liquid instead of air. Your heart races, then stutters, then starts beating irregularly as oxygen-starved blood struggles to keep your brain alive. You stop fighting because soon your body simply runs out of energy. Your muscles go limp. Your brain starts shutting down. The tsunami carries your unconscious body back toward the ocean like a broken toy. If you had tried to stay indoors, any building you would be in would collapse from the water pressure. Maybe you survived the first wave. There's the second wave, which is always bigger. Maybe you can avoid drowning, but a downed power line in the water would electrocute you instead.
These are some of the worst terrorist attacks in history. I'm talking about terrorist attacks from one man killing 77 people in 2 different cities within one afternoon, to one where a government bombed its own country's children. Ladies and box heads, I know it's been a minute since I've made a video, but let's just get right into it.
The Beslan School Siege. This is the story of a meticulously planned attack where a group of terrorists took over 1,000 people hostage and kept killing them over insane, made-up rules over the span of multiple days. It all took place in the mountains of the Caucasus region in Russia.
It was September 1st, 2004, honestly a day like any other.
But there was something shady going on. A band of separatist terrorists stormed into the humble town of Beslan in North Ossetia. They weren't looking for a government building or anything. They weren't even targeting a business. So what was their agenda? Well, they were going straight for a school. School number 1. It was Knowledge Day in Russia. The first day of the school year, kids had dressed up in their finest clothes. Parents took pictures. Everyone was excited. Nearly 800 children had shown up eagerly that morning, along with their families. Over 1,000 people in total. Nobody knew they were walking into a trap. Right outside, the terrorists were moving fast. The incoming attack was being commanded by someone terrifying. Shamil Basayev, the most feared Chechen warlord in Russia. This wasn't Basayev's first attack. He had a reputation for planning the most brazen and terrifying attacks in modern Russian history. In November 2002, he had taken 800 people hostage at a theater in Moscow. Over 100 hostages died when Russian forces tried to end that siege. A month later, he orchestrated vehicle bomb attacks in Grozny. 80 people killed. 6 months after that, another attack. 59 more dead. He led a raid that killed 90 people. He directed a bombing on the Moscow metro. 41 dead. By the summer of 2004, Basayev was easily the most wanted man in all of Russia. His name was known globally.
Ladies and box heads, seriously one of the most dangerous terrorists in the world. And from what I can find on the internet, some would say on par with Osama bin Laden.
There was even a video of this man watching his own foot being amputated, with only local anesthetic. After stepping on a landmine in 2000, this was the man now about to hold over 1,000 people hostage. The worst terrorist attack in Russian history was about to unfold. At 9:10 in the morning, everything changed. A police van pulled up to the school grounds. Behind it, a large military truck. Out stepped several dozen men. They wore green fatigues and black balaclavas. They carried rifles, handguns, and something worse, explosive suicide belts. The terrorists opened fire immediately. Children screamed and ran. Parents grabbed their kids, but there was nowhere to go. They were inside a building. The handful of local police that rushed to try and deal with the situation didn't stand a chance. They were shot down in seconds. The gunmen moved fast. They had planned this perfectly. The terrorists rounded up everyone, over 1,100 people. 777 of them were children. All of them were herded into the school building. They were forced into the newly built gymnasium, 10 meters wide by 25 meters long. Over 1,000 people crammed into that tiny space. There was barely room to breathe, let alone move. Then the terrorists did something unexpected. They forced some hostages to help them lift up the floorboards. Hidden underneath was something horrifying: weapons, ammunition, explosives. They had been planted there before the school year even began by maintenance workers. This attack had been planned for months. The entire building was loaded with explosives. The terrorists now hung bombs from a wire stretched between the two basketball hoops. Right above the children's heads, two terrorists strapped on suicide vests. They sat down and put their feet on the pedals. If they lifted their feet, the vests would explode. Everyone would die. Every entrance and exit was wired with explosives. The terrorists knocked out all the windows. They put on gas masks. They weren't taking any chances in case the cops tried to gas them out. Some of the gunmen climbed onto the roof. Snipers took defensive positions. School number 1 was now a fortress, with hundreds of children trapped inside. Dozens of people had managed to escape during the first few minutes to ask for help. They called the authorities. Russian troops and police raced to the scene, but the Russian government lied to everyone from the very beginning. They said only 200 to 400 people were taken hostage, so that the public wouldn't freak out. Later, they claimed 354. That was barely a third of the real number. Over 1,000 people were actually trapped inside. The response was massive, though. Russian police, interior troops, army forces, special forces units called Spetsnaz, elite police units known as Oman. They established a cordon around the school. Behind them came the heavy weapons, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, and something else. Over 5,000 armed civilians and independent militia that joined voluntarily. This thing was going national. Angry locals wanted revenge from the terrorist group. What they didn't bring was help for any of the victims. No firefighting equipment, no paramedics, no ambulances. They came prepared for war, not rescue. Inside the gymnasium, the nightmare had begun. The terrorists established their brutal rules. Speak only Russian. Speak only when spoken to. The first execution happened quickly. A local father tried to translate the instructions for other hostages. Many people spoke the local language better than Russian. The gunman waited until he finished. He shot him dead in front of everyone. A second father was killed for refusing to kneel. Then came the worst part. The terrorists selected 15 to 20 of the strongest men, the ones who might potentially fight back. They were led to a corridor in another part of the school. Minutes later, most of them were dead. Some were blown up, others were shot. Only one survived. Now it was time for negotiations. The terrorists made their demands. You see, this was a group fighting for the independence of Chechnya. They didn't want Vladimir Putin all up in their business. So that's what they asked for. Full recognition of Chechen independence at the UN. Immediate troop withdrawal from Chechnya. An end to the Russian military presence there. And they set their terms. If police killed one gunman, 50 hostages would die. If one gunman was injured, 20 hostages would die. If Russia
attacked the school, everyone inside would be blown up immediately. So the government of Russia said they would negotiate in good faith. They wouldn't attack the school. The terrorists wanted a specific negotiator, Leonid Roshal, a pediatrician who had negotiated a previous siege in 2002, since the government was being so accommodating. But you see, the Russian government was lying. While civilians negotiated, the military planned a counterattack, led by the Russian FSB. They were playing a double game. Inside the school, conditions became desperate. The terrorists refused to allow anyone to eat or drink. They called it a hunger strike. They wanted to force Russia to send the North Ossetian president to negotiate. The heat was extreme. Children were dehydrating. According to survivors, both children and adults were forced to drink their own urine just to survive. The flowers children had brought for their teachers became their food. They were the only sustenance available. Many children fainted from fatigue. Then the adults started collapsing too. The gymnasium was becoming a death trap. Over 1,000 people packed into a space meant for maybe 200. No food, no water, no air, bombs hanging over their heads. The militants made more rules. No medicine would be sent inside. No corpses would be removed from in front of the school. They fired grenades at any car that came too close. The terrorists found out that the Russian government had lied about the number of hostages. This made the gunmen angry because it would mean their cause would get less attention. They took out their frustrations on the captives. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin was in Jordan. He barely acknowledged the crisis at all, as if over 1,000 hostages didn't matter. Then came a bright spot. On the second afternoon of the siege, two ex-presidents arrived on the scene. Ruslan Aushev came from Ingushetia. He was allowed to enter the school. When he came out, he wasn't alone. He carried 15 infants, along with the 11 nursing mothers. The youngest victims were finally safe. He also brought something else, a videotape showing the children inside, and a note. The note allegedly came directly from Shamil Basayev. It contained formal demands. Independence for Chechnya. In exchange, Basayev would take responsibility for deadly bombings in 1999. Bombings that Chechen separatists had always denied. That night, things got worse inside the school. Much worse. According to survivors, the hostage takers became unpredictable, at times even hysterical. Nobody knew why. Sleep deprivation, drug withdrawal, high stress, irritation at the children crying, maybe all of the above. By the morning of the third day, everyone knew something had to give, and give soon. A new figure was about to enter the story, Aslan Maskhadov, the president in exile of the unrecognized independent Chechen Republic. Moscow saw him as an opponent, but they hoped his voice might calm tensions. The terrorists inside seemed ready to negotiate. Maskhadov got on a plane. He was coming to negotiate directly. According to some sources, the siege might actually be resolved peacefully, but not everyone wanted peace. Remember how the military was planning an attack? There's another guy in this story. Alexander Zasukov was the North Ossetian president. The hostage takers had demanded to speak with him directly, but he was barred from making contact. He was threatened with arrest if he tried. He was prohibited from taking part in the FSB's plans. He couldn't even enter their headquarters. There were two rescue efforts happening simultaneously. The civilian one who wanted to negotiate, and the FSB-led operation that had zero intention of talking. The military wanted to resolve this by force, and they were running out of time. The decision to bring Maskhadov to the school set off a ticking clock. Those who wanted to attack had to move fast, before their opportunity was gone forever. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the third day, not long before Maskhadov was due to arrive, school number 1 was rocked by explosions. The first came from inside the gymnasium, at the exact moment that 4 paramedics were approaching the school. It was an agreed upon operation. They were supposed to retrieve 20 bodies from the school grounds. When the explosion rang out, the terrorists responded with gunfire. 2 paramedics were killed instantly. The others fled for their lives. A few seconds later, another explosion hit the school. According to investigator Marina Vinovich, both explosions came from Russian troops. They had fired grenade launchers directly toward the auditorium. One survivor said later, "It was as if something had flown in, a giant ball of fire." Within minutes, much of the ceiling in the gymnasium was on fire. The roof buckled, then it collapsed inward on the children and adults inside. The children who managed to escape were in terrible condition. The effects of dehydration were so severe they could barely move. They could hardly force their bodies to carry them away from the flames. 160 people were killed by the collapse and fire, and things were about to get much worse. After the explosions, a small number of hostages ran for the exits. The hostage takers, now disoriented, tried to keep their remaining hostages alive. They ushered others toward the school cafeteria in a different part of the building. Hostages were lined up along the windows of the gymnasium. The terrorists wanted to show Russian troops outside. Women and children were in the direct line of fire. But it didn't matter. Using tanks, flamethrowers, and grenade launchers, Russian forces carried out their assault. Soldiers with rifles traded fire with the militants inside. More hostages died in the crossfire. The Russian government would later claim they only attacked to stop the hostage takers from killing hostages. But accounts from the ground directly contradict that story. As the assault continued, tanks kept up direct fire. Even an armed attack helicopter joined in, firing on both hostage takers and hostages. The militias and civilians outside attempted to storm the school themselves. Over 5,000 armed people are rushing toward a burning building full of children. The rescue had become a massacre, and it was just getting started. At the edges of the Russian lines, chaos erupted. Local police panicked. Inexperienced military conscripts fled their positions. At least 3 highly destructive HOUR rockets were fired directly at the school. These were thermobaric weapons most Western nations wouldn't dare use near civilians. At least one armored vehicle opened fire with a heavy machine gun directly into the school's second story, where children were trapped. Many students and adults who had stepped into Russian troops' line of sight were killed where they stood. At least 100 died after the majority of surviving hostages were moved from the gymnasium to the cafeteria. As the battle wore on, more and more of the school came under Russian military control. The surviving militants were being pushed back. Some retreated to the basement, others were forced to flee. One group of gunmen was cornered in a nearby building. The building was razed to the ground with flamethrowers and tanks. Nothing left but ash and rubble. Another group was chased into Beslan City. They were hunted down and killed in the streets. When firefighters eventually arrived on the scene, it was too late. They had been called in a full 2 hours after the battle began. 2 hours. While children were burned alive, the firefighters were unable to control the fire for several more hours. The school continued to burn, with people still inside. So few paramedics had been present during the assault. Many of the wounded were driven in cars to the nearest hospital. It was all regular people trying to save lives while their government failed them. Through the night, a handful of escaping gunmen were pursued. Several were killed, possibly mutilated by Russian troops. One was captured alive. A further one was lynched by an angry mob. The people of Beslan wanted revenge. Any revenge they could get. By the time the sun rose on Beslan the following morning, the counting began. 186 child hostages were dead. 128 adult hostages were dead. 19 rescuers were dead. 31 gunmen were dead. Over 1,200 people were injured. This was the deadliest end to a terror attack in recorded human history. The Russian official response was predictably secretive. An investigation was led by a close ally of Vladimir Putin, a man with a long relationship with the Russian FSB. Over 2 years later, they released their findings. They claimed a terrorist had intentionally detonated a bomb to start the fighting. The terrorists had been acting according to a plan developed earlier. Of course, the report found that no Russian authorities had done anything wrong. Tanks, flamethrowers, and deadly weapons were only deployed after the last hostages were extracted. But those claims flew in the face of hundreds of eyewitness accounts. They were inconsistent with every credible investigation. According to another source, an investigation done by North Ossetia itself, the initial explosion came after a sniper shot one of the terrorists. The terrorist was sitting with their foot on a detonator. When they were shot, the detonator was triggered, likely killing or maiming several hostages around them. Another investigator, an independent expert from the Russian Duma, came to the same conclusion. Russian special forces had launched grenades toward the school without warning. Later video revealed conversations between Russian prosecutors and army engineers. The engineers explained that the terrorists' own bombs featured ball bearings, meant to create shrapnel. But none of the children's bodies recovered at the scene showed evidence of ball-bearing shrapnel injuries. One statement by a survivor is most striking of all. They recalled a shocked gunman inside the gymnasium after the first explosions began. The gunman said, "Your own people blew you up. While the Russian government would later claim genuine care for the victims, their conduct told a different story. Relatives of the wounded were prohibited from entering hospitals. Doctors were only allowed to assist after giving up their mobile phones. In the days after the attack, bulldozers cleared out the debris, without even attempting to collect human remains. They treated the victims like garbage. Vladimir Putin made only a token visit to Beslan Hospital. He did not seek out any interactions with the families of victims. But none of that was enough to push him out of office. Putin insisted the attack had been planned and carried out by actors outside Russia. No evidence to support that claim was ever presented. But like any good autocrat, Putin didn't let the crisis go to waste. He used it to his personal benefit, to hasten the consolidation of power already underway inside Russia. The children of Beslan had died for nothing. Now, let's talk about the Madrid train bombings. This is the horrifying story of how a group of extremists turned Spain's busiest commuter trains into death traps, changing the course of a nation in just 3 minutes of terror. It was March 11th, 2004, a normal Thursday morning in Madrid, Spain. Thousands of commuters were rushing to catch their trains. Workers heading to offices, students going to university, parents dropping kids at school. The sun was shining, spring was in the air. Nobody could have imagined that in less than 3 minutes, their morning commute would become one of the deadliest terrorist attacks in European history. All across Madrid, people were getting ready for another ordinary day. At train stations throughout the city, platforms filled with passengers. Atocha station, Madrid's main railway hub, buzzed with activity. 4 commuter trains pulled out of Alcalá de Henares station between 7:01 and 7:14 a.m. Train number 21,431. Train number 21,435. Train number 21,713. Train number 17,305. All headed towards central Madrid, all packed with innocent people. What the passengers didn't know was that hidden among them were 13 backpacks, each one stuffed with Goma 2 Ikeo explosives, each one rigged with a cell phone timer, each one set to turn their morning commute into a nightmare. The plan had been months in the making. A loose network of Islamic extremists had been watching, planning, preparing. Most were young Moroccan immigrants. Some had lived in Spain for years. Others had arrived recently, angry about Spain's support for the Iraq War. They called themselves soldiers in a holy war. In the weeks before March 11th, they had conducted reconnaissance missions. They rode the trains, they studied the schedules, they timed the rush hour crowds. They bought prepaid cell phones from a shop in Madrid's Lavapiés neighborhood. They acquired explosives from miners in northern Spain. They stuffed the bombs into ordinary sports bags and backpacks, the kind students carry to school every day. Then they waited. March 11th was chosen for maximum impact. It was 3 days before Spain's general election. It was the height of morning rush hour. It was the moment when the trains would be most crowded. The attackers boarded the trains at Alcalá de Henares. Some witnesses later reported seeing 3 men in ski masks getting on and off trains multiple times between 7 and 7:10 a.m. They placed their deadly cargo and got off. Then they disappeared into the crowd. The 4 trains rolled toward Madrid carrying their hidden bombs. People read newspapers, listened to music, dozed in their seats. Students reviewed notes for exams. Workers mentally prepared for meetings. Nobody noticed the backpacks. Nobody suspected a thing. As the trains approached central Madrid, the cell phone alarms were set to go off. 7:37 a.m., 7:38 a.m., 7:39 a.m. Sudden silence. Then explosion. The first bomb detonated at Atocha station at exactly 7:37 a.m. Boom! The blast ripped through a train car like a can opener. Metal twisted, glass shattered, bodies flew through the air. Before people could even process what was happening, boom! Boom! 2 more bombs exploded at Atocha. Passengers who had escaped the first explosion were caught in the second and third, but the terror was just beginning. At 7:38 a.m., another explosion tore through train number 21,435 at El Pozo del Tío Raimundo station. Boom! Then another bomb on the same train. Boom! The double-decker train cars collapsed like accordions. People trapped on the upper level fell through the floor onto the devastation below. At the same time, train number 21,713 was hit at Santa Eugenia station. Boom! boom! One massive explosion ripped through the fourth car. At 7:39 a.m., the final train, number 17,305, was approaching Atocha station when 4 bombs exploded almost simultaneously. The blast came in rapid succession across different carriages. Fire erupted through the train cars. Smoke filled the tunnels. In less than 3 minutes, 10 bombs had detonated. 191 people were dead. More than 1,800 were injured. The aftermath was chaos. Survivors stumbled from the wreckage covered in blood and dust. Some had lost limbs. Others had severe burns. Many wandered in shock, unable to comprehend what had happened. Emergency responders rushed to the scene. Firefighters, paramedics, police. They pulled survivors from the twisted metal. They searched for signs of life in the rubble. At hospitals across Madrid, doctors worked frantically. Operating rooms overflowed with victims. Waiting rooms filled with families searching for loved ones. The Spanish government declared a state of emergency. The entire nation stood still. But even as the rescue operations continued, investigators were already working, and they made a crucial discovery. Hidden among the destroyed trains was an unexploded bomb, a 13th device that had failed to detonate. It appeared the cell phone alarm had been set 12 hours late. The bomb squad carefully examined the device. Inside the backpack, they found 22 pounds of dynamite, nails and screws packed around the explosives for maximum damage, and most importantly, a cell phone. The investigators traced the SIM card. It led them to a mobile phone shop in Madrid called Nuevo Siglo, the New Century. The owner was a young Moroccan man named Jamal Zougam. The investigation moved quickly. Police found a Renault Kangoo van parked outside Alcalá de Henares station. Inside, detonators, audio tapes with Quranic verses, and more cell phones. The evidence was overwhelming. This was Islamic terrorism. But the Spanish government had a problem. Prime Minister José María Aznar had strongly supported the Iraq War. 90% of Spaniards opposed that decision. If the bombings were linked to Islamic extremists angry about Iraq, it could destroy the ruling party's chances in the election just 3 days away. So initially, the government blamed ETA. Interior Minister Angel Echebes declared, "There is no doubt ETA is responsible." But the evidence kept pointing toward Islamic terrorists. On the day of the attacks, a videotape appeared. A man claiming to be Al-Qaeda's commander in Europe took responsibility. He said the bombings were punishment for Spain's involvement in Iraq. The Spanish people weren't fooled. That evening, spontaneous protests erupted in Madrid, Barcelona, and other cities. Demonstrators chanted, "We want to know the truth before we vote." On March 14th, 3 days after the bombings, Spain held its election. The results were shocking. The ruling Popular Party, expected to win easily, was defeated. The opposition Socialist Party swept to power. Their leader, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, became the new prime minister. He had promised to withdraw Spanish troops from Iraq, and he kept that promise. By June 2004, all Spanish forces had left Iraq. The terrorists had achieved their goal. They had changed the course of Spanish politics through violence. But the story wasn't over. The hunt for the bombers continued. On April 2nd, 2004, police discovered another bomb on the high-speed train line between Madrid and Seville. It was the same type of explosive used in the March 11th attacks. But this time, security guards spotted suspicious activity and called for help. The bomb was safely deactivated. The terrorists had tried to strike again and failed. The next day, April 3rd, Spanish police surrounded an apartment in Leganés, a suburb south of Madrid. Inside were 7 suspected terrorists, 6 Moroccans and 1 Tunisian. They were the core of the Madrid bombing network. As special forces prepared to storm the building, the suspects made a final, desperate decision. Rather than be captured, they would die as martyrs. At 9:03 p.m., just as the police attempted to breach the apartment, the terrorists detonated a bomb, destroying the entire apartment. All 7 suspects died instantly. 1 police officer, Javier Toronteras, was also killed. 11 others were wounded. In the rubble, investigators found crucial evidence. The explosives were the same type used in the train bombings. Computer files revealed the extent of the terrorist network. They had been planning additional attacks, Jewish targets, government buildings, tourist sites. They had 1.5 million euros in cash. They had rented safe houses in other cities. The March 11th attacks had cost only 105,000 euros to execute. It was a terrifying return on investment. Over the following months and years, the investigation continued. 29 suspects were eventually charged. In October 2007, after a 5-month trial, 21 people were convicted. Jamal Zougam, the cell phone shop owner, received a sentence of over 42,000 years in prison. Under Spanish law, he can serve a maximum of 40 years. But 7 key suspects were acquitted, including some alleged ringleaders. Families of victims were outraged. They felt justice had not been fully served. The truth about who masterminded the attacks remained murky. Some investigators found connections to Al-Qaeda training camps in Afghanistan. Others believed it was a more local network inspired by, but not directed by, international terrorism. What was clear was the devastating impact. March 11th became a day of mourning in Spain. Memorial services were held across the country. At Atocha station, a memorial wall was erected with the names of all 191 victims. Every year, Spaniards gather there to remember, to honor the dead, to promise never again. The Madrid bombings changed Spain forever. They changed Europe's approach to terrorism. They showed how a small group of extremists could alter the course of history with nothing more than backpacks, cell phones, and bombs. They proved that terrorism could be tragically effective. In just 3 minutes of horror, they had killed 191 innocent people, wounded over 1,800 others, toppled a government, changed a country's foreign policy, withdrawn troops from a literal war. Today, 20 years later, the scars remain. Survivors still struggle with trauma. Finally, let's talk about the Oslo and Utøya massacre. This is the horrifying story of Anders Breivik, a man who planned the perfect storm of terror that would tear apart one of the world's most peaceful nations in just 3.5 hours. It was July 22nd, 2011, a quiet Friday afternoon in Oslo, Norway. Most people had already left work early. It was the middle of summer holidays. The weather was gray and humid, typical for Norwegian summer. In government buildings across the capital, only about 200 people remained at their desks. Usually there would be 1,900. The offices were nearly empty, the streets were calm. Norway felt safe. But there was a traumatized man-child on the loose. Anders Behring Breivik was born in Oslo on February 13th, 1979. His childhood was troubled from the start. His parents divorced when he was young. At age 4, he was evaluated by child psychiatrists. They were concerned about his behavior and his unstable home life. His mother was described as emotionally disturbed. His father, a diplomat, was largely absent from his life. As a teenager, Breivik was involved in graffiti and petty crime. He was intelligent but dropped out of high school before final exams. He became involved with Norway's Progress Party, a right-wing group that opposed immigration. But by 2006, he had become radicalized beyond mainstream politics. He believed that Europe was being destroyed by Muslim immigration and left-wing multiculturalism. He decided that democracy had failed. Violence was the only solution. For years, Breivik planned his attack. He wrote a 1,518-page manifesto called 2083, a European Declaration of Independence. Most of it was copied and pasted from other right-wing websites, but it outlined his twisted worldview and his plan for saving Europe. He started several businesses to fund his operation. He rented a farm to give him access to large amounts of fertilizer. He legally purchased weapons by joining a shooting club and getting a hunting license. And he planned every detail of July 22nd, 2011. On the morning of the attacks, Breivik sent his manifesto to 1,003 email addresses. Politicians, journalists, and right-wing activists across Europe. He wanted his message to spread. He wanted to inspire others to follow his example. He believed he was starting a war. At 3:18 p.m., a white Volkswagen Crafter van rolled through the streets of central Oslo. CCTV cameras captured it parking next to Norway's government headquarters. A tall man in his early 30s stepped out. It was Anders Behring Breivik. He was dressed in a fake police uniform complete with official-looking insignia. He looked around calmly, then walked away from the van. What nobody knew was that the van contained nearly a ton of fertilizer-based explosives. Ammonia ammonium nitrate mixed with diesel fuel, a homemade bomb that had taken Breivik months to perfect. The timer was set. The countdown had begun. Inside the van, wires connected to a cell phone detonator lay waiting. Everything was ready. At 3:26 p.m., the bomb detonated with the force of an earthquake. Boom! The blast was so powerful it could be heard 70 kilometers away. Windows shattered across downtown Oslo. Buildings shook. The pressure wave swept through the tunnel where local businessman Jo Anton Berg was driving. His car stopped dead. He thought the ceiling was collapsing. When the dust began to settle, the scene was apocalyptic. 8 people were dead. More than 200 were injured. 12 were critically wounded. The government headquarters looked like a war zone. Chunks of concrete lay scattered across the streets. Cars were crushed like tin cans. Shop owner after shop owner described the same thing. A massive pressure wave that felt like the world was ending. Debris and dust filling the air. The terror that the building might collapse. Emergency responders rushed to the scene. But as they worked to pull survivors from the wreckage, Anders Breivik was already driving away. He had parked his car nearby before the bombing. Now he was heading northwest toward a lake called Tyrifjorden, 25 miles from Oslo. Breivik's work wasn't done. The bombing was just phase 1. Phase 2 would be far more deadly. On a small island in the middle of the lake sat Utoya, a peaceful wooded island that had been used for political retreats since the 1930s. That weekend, it was hosting the annual summer camp of the Workers' Youth League, the youth wing of Norway's ruling Labour Party. 600 young people between the ages of 13 and 22 were on the island. Future politicians, idealistic teenagers, the next generation of Norwegian leaders. They had no idea a killer was coming for them. At around 5 p.m., about an hour and a half after the Oslo bombing, a man in a police uniform approached the ferry to Utoya. He showed fake police identification. He told the ferry operator he needed to perform a security check in connection with the bombing in Oslo. It seemed perfectly reasonable. Of course the police would want to check on the youth camp after such a terrible attack. The ferry operator let him board. As the small boat made its way to the island, the man in the police uniform was carrying a heavy bag. Inside were a Ruger Mini 14 semi-automatic rifle and a Glock 34 pistol. He had 186 rounds of ammunition, body armor, and a plan to kill as many people as possible. This was Anders Breivik, and he was about to begin the deadliest shooting spree in Norwegian history. Back in Oslo, investigators were working frantically to identify the bomber. The government quarter looked like a disaster area. People wandered around slowly like zombies. Oslo police were completely unprepared for something like this. They had been caught with their pants down. Pictures coming through to the police control room offered the first crucial clues. CCTV footage of the white van, the fake police uniform, but the culprit was already one step ahead of the authorities, and what he had planned next would dwarf the carnage in the city. Over in Utoya Island, people were playing football and volleyball. Everything was normal, perfect. Then suddenly, the woman who was running the island, they called her Mother Utoya, came in with a look on her face that nobody had ever seen before. She said something had exploded in Oslo. Of course, everyone was shocked. They saw pictures and it was like seeing scenes from a city at war. It was like someone switched the light off and took the breath out of everybody's lungs. There was no joy anymore. One young camper remembered getting a call from his worried mother. She was afraid something had happened to him. He told her no, nothing had happened. He wasn't in Oslo. She should be calm because he was probably at the safest place in Norway right now. No one could have imagined that the man behind the bombing in Oslo had his sights set on the island of Utoya. At 5:17 p.m. on July 22nd, 2011, the ferry arrived at the island. Disguised as a police officer and claiming an obligation to keep Utoya's inhabitants safe from harm, Breivik was welcomed. They even helped carry his big suitcase. The suitcase filled with ammunition. Breivik's deception had been perfected over the years. His ability to blend in when he needed to. Such capabilities would prove crucial in carrying out the second stage of his killing spree. For 4 minutes, Breivik walked among them, pretending to be concerned about their safety, asking questions about security, getting the lay of the land, identifying the best spots for maximum carnage. At 5:21 p.m., The massacre began. What would follow would be over an hour of unimaginable horror. An hour that would change Norway forever. An hour that would prove one man with a plan could destroy hundreds of lives. And an hour that would test whether a peaceful nation could survive the worst of humanity. The first thing Breivik did was ask for the guardsmen of the island. He wanted to speak with them, and the woman who was the head of the camp. When they approached him, trusting his police uniform, he drew his pistol. He shot them both in the head, point blank range. They were his first victims on the island. At 5:23 p.m., Anders Breivik approached the cafeteria, a building busy with young people. One camper was entering the cafeteria when he saw many people running outside. He called to them, asking why they were running like that. One of them shouted back that a guy was shooting people. The camper took it seriously because the voice was stressed, but he also thought it might be a joke. This day had already been so absurd with the Oslo bombing. It couldn't get any worse. He ran outside the building. People were lying on the ground, dead. That was the moment he understood this was real. As confusion spread across the camp, Breivik maintained a menacing calm. His singular purpose, the intention to kill. There was a girl approaching him from a distance. He looked like a policeman to her. This man walked normally at normal speed toward this girl. She was walking normally toward him. Then he pulled up the gun he held down by his thigh. He pointed it at her. She stopped, slowly started walking backwards. He continued at the same speed toward her. He shot her down to the ground. There were around 500 young people gathered around the cafeteria and campsite. It was like nothing moved. Not even a single leaf or blade of grass. Everything stood completely still. And at the same time that girl hit the ground, it seemed like the ground itself lifted up and started running away. That was all the people running. At 5:31 p.m., Breivik began working his way through the campsite toward the woods. Between the tents and chairs and things lying around, it was like an obstacle course. This was an obstacle course where if you fell, you would die. The gunman had already shot and killed 21 people. As he made his way through the woods toward the southern tip of the island, he would take 15 more lives. One camper ran until he reached the sea. There was nowhere left to run. He hid in the grass. They could hear the trees crunching from the bullets that were fired. You could see bullet holes in the bark. They heard just a lot of shooting. At the time they heard shooting, it was terrible because they knew what was happening. Even though they had never prepared for this. Never prepared for running for their lives or being attacked like this. It was impressive how the body reacted. The only thing the mind was set on was survival. Before you even started to think about something, your body and mind had already done it. Before you realized you had to run, you were already running. Before you started to think swim, you were already in the water. Rumors of the atrocities unfolding on Utoya began to circulate across Norway. Journalist Marius Anderson was dispatched in a helicopter to investigate. When they approached the island, the weather was really bad. It was raining from all directions. They had to go in pretty low, as slow as possible. He told his pilot to start circling the island. He needed an overview. He needed to understand what was going on. He had no idea what he was about to witness. For many on the island, the only option was to swim for their lives. One camper left his cell phone and wallet behind so he could hide underwater. He started swimming. He saw people in the water. The strange thing about the mind was that you didn't expect people to be swimming away from an island looking scared. This was a summer camp. His head told him they were just taking a swim. It took a second to realize they weren't swimming for fun. They weren't bathing. They were swimming away from the island in terror. After 50, maybe 100 meters, one swimmer couldn't breathe. He turned back. He realized it was going to be too far. He also realized he was probably going to drown. One survivor remembered standing in water up to his hip or thigh. There was no one around him. He thought he was alone. Suddenly, the same man he had seen earlier came out of the woods, just 8, maybe 10 meters away. "I'm going to kill you!" Breivik screamed. "You must all die today." The killing continued, methodical, relentless. For over an hour, Anders Breivik hunted young people across the small island. Some tried to hide in buildings, others fled to the woods. Many jumped into the freezing lake. Some made it to shore. Others drowned trying. But the gunfire never stopped. This was Norway's darkest hour. A peaceful summer camp turned into a war zone. Young people who had come to discuss politics and change the world were being hunted like animals. Their only crime was believing in democracy. Their only mistake was trusting a man in a police uniform. At 5:40 p.m., he began shooting at the youngsters in the water. He started shooting into the water after the people who were swimming. When you saw the columns of water rising from the bullets, you realized this was happening for real. After he finished shooting, he turned around toward one survivor hiding nearby. He aimed directly at him. The survivor could see into the barrel of the rifle. He didn't know why, but he screamed, "No, don't shoot me!" In the blink of an eye, Breivik pulled down his rifle, turned around, and walked away. Later, Breivik would claim he hadn't shot that survivor because he looked right-wing in appearance. Even in his massacre, he was making calculations, choosing his victims based on his twisted ideology. 6:08 p.m., July 22nd, Utoya Island. Breivik had already taken the lives of 49 people. With police occupied by events in Oslo, local residents took to the water in boats. They began a relief effort, plucking those who had chosen to swim to safety from the freezing lake. One of those residents was local hotel worker Viggo Larsson. He saw people in the water, desperate, freezing, fighting for their lives. Without hesitation, he launched his boat. The local police dispatched officers to the island. Norway's specialist counterterrorism unit, Delta Force, was also called into action. But the response was catastrophically slow. One caller contacted police several times. They said they were on their way. It took more than an hour. They were completely helpless. At around 6:10 p.m., a large group of youngsters were at the pump house. A police officer arrived. He informed them that the culprit had been caught. As they gathered together, relieved, he opened fire. It was Breivik. 14 would die at that moment. By 6:30 p.m., Breivik had circled the island. He returned to the southern tip where he began shooting again. The moment was captured from the circling helicopter. The first shot was so loud. Before one survivor even opened his eyes, he felt something warm next to his head. It felt like his head exploded. He was convinced he was dead. The survivor had been wounded in the shoulder. 5 of those around him would die. From what he knew, the last bullet fired on the island was the bullet that hit him in the shoulder. It was still there. Breivik was captured 1 minute and 20 seconds after that last shot. After an hour and 9 minutes of unchecked bloodshed, Delta Force arrived on the shores of Utoya to face down Anders Breivik. The last thing survivors were able to see was police walking in tactical formations, like terror cops do. Checking out the area, the man responsible for the massacre would surrender without a fight. Breivik's spree was different from many others. Predominantly, spree killers either kill themselves or are killed by law enforcement. Clearly, Breivik wanted to be taken alive, so he could give his ideological views a platform. Although the violence was over, for survivors left on Utoya, the trauma would continue. One was rescued by police and taken away by private boat. When he arrived at the hotel where all survivors were gathered, he immediately understood that the number of killed would be extremely high. He wanted to say everything happened so fast, but actually it didn't. It happened very slowly. It seemed like they were trapped there forever, and some part of him probably still was. In one afternoon, Anders Breivik had claimed the lives of 77 of his countrymen. He claimed to have committed the massacre as a political act. Several months prior to the attacks, the reclusive right-winger had moved from his mother's Oslo flat to an isolated farm 2 hours north. All the while, he kept a diary of his preparations. These would form a significant part of his manifesto. He played a very savvy game of taking media-friendly pictures of himself, posturing with guns, posturing in uniforms, looking very Aryan, showing his blue eyes and blonde hair. He saw himself as being suitable for breeding, almost like a stud for future generations of the Aryan race. He was clearly a narcissistic individual who knew how to sell the image of what he was trying to pass on. Under the guise of becoming a vegetable farmer, Breivik used his seclusion to his advantage, gathering ammunition, planning his attack. This was when he researched and planned, got there with all of his equipment, started manufacturing his bomb. At 2:09 p.m. on the day of the attack, Breivik would make his motivations public. sending out his 1,500 plus page manifesto to supposed sympathizers across Europe. Just over an hour later, his killing spree, the deadliest in world history, would begin. But what had driven Anders Breivik to commit such an unimaginable crime? Breivik would attempt to use his trial as a platform to promote his twisted ideology. It seemed like the court was a kind of theater for him. The whole trial was about getting recognition as a political terrorist, as an extremist, as a militant, not to be written off as crazy. That picture of Breivik giving the Nazi salute probably did as much for his publicity as his 1,500 page manifesto. And that was one of the legacies of the murders. He was allowed to live and publicize his deranged beliefs. Anders Behring Breivik would be found guilty of the murders of all 77 people. He would receive a 21-year sentence, the maximum possible under Norwegian law. The question most people asked was, how can one person do this? How can you be able to do it as a human being? The core essence of Breivik's hatred stemmed from childhood abuse, somehow refined over the years. Breivik wasn't mentally ill, but there was evidence to suggest he had a paranoid personality type, or more likely narcissistic personality disorder. If you thought about whether he could have been stopped earlier, the one time he was really within the system was when he was really young, when he was 3 or 4 years old. The authorities recognized something was wrong, but the system let him go. For one survivor, the court case had answered a disturbing question. Adrian Prakon couldn't understand why he had been spared. It didn't make sense to him. He didn't know how he could be so lucky. Breivik explained in court after a week that he remembered why he spared Adrian. He said Adrian looked like a right-wing extremist. He didn't look like a Marxist, so Breivik thought he should stay alive.
Ladies and boxheads, I know this video was absolutely heartbreaking and honestly, when I was researching, shocking. But if you want to hear more shocking stories, click this video right here where I talk about the worst bombings in history.